Hi guys, this is Mary Hebert, and I'm going to be showing you several different ways on how to extend a photography backdrop in Photoshop. Um, this is something that comes up all the time in the discussion groups that I'm in. There's always seems to be a little bit of the background showing in most shots, no matter how hard you try to get it perfect in camera. And people really seem to struggle with how to extend that backdrop so that it looks natural and it doesn't look like it's been altered. The thing with Photoshop is it's such a huge program. There's a million different ways to do everything. I'm going to show you some of my favorite ways to extend a backdrop and some of my least favorite ways to extend a backdrop, and I'm going to explain why I feel the way I do about each different way. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with duplicating my image, because anytime you are going to alter an image, you want to have a record of the original image right below your image so that you don't ever lose that image that you started with. I am a huge fan of shortcuts. Photoshop has lots of them. The shortcut to duplicate your image is Command J, Control J if you're on a PC. And as you can see over here is I just made a copy of my layer. So now no matter what I do to this top layer, I still have the original layer on the bottom untouched. I know I can always go back to it. So most beginners, when they come into Photoshop, they pretty much know the healing brush and the clone stamp. So when they need to make a backdrop bigger, they tend to jump right to the clone stamp. The problem with the clone stamp is that it's really unforgiving. It shows a lot of track marks. It shows a lot of alteration. Especially if you're going to be entering competitions or doing anything like that in the future, they will find those clone marks right away. You got to make sure that you're seamlessly extending your backdrop in a way that is not super noticeable. When you use the clone stamp, what you do is you put your mouse over an area that you want to clone. You hit the option button, gives you this little indicator, and you left click. And what that does is it makes a copy of that spot that you were just on. You can then move and you can stamp it just like this. You want to re-select every few minutes so that you're not getting too much of the same thing over and over. And you want to try to line up these lines as best you can. Now, this image is one that you probably could get away with clone stamping it because this background is really forgiving. It's textured. It's a really easy background to blend. You can come down here and you could clone stamp the floor, but not every backdrop is going to be like this. Like this little tiny piece is just a little bent. It's bothering me. Okay, so that's how to clone stamp a backdrop, and that's fine. I still am seeing some repeating patterns in here. You could go in and kind of rework those and make them a little bit less noticeable, and you could probably get away with it with this backdrop, but like I said, not every backdrop is this forgiving. So that is a method that works, but it's not my preferred method for extending a backdrop. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to Command J to duplicate my layer one more time, and I'm going to show you another option. So another option would be you could take your square marquee tool. You could draw a square. You want to right click on your square and layer via copy. And basically it took that little piece and it put it on a layer all by itself. Now if I want to transform this layer, all I have to do is make sure that I'm on the highlighted layer. I'm going to hit Command T. That's going to activate transformation. And then if I wanted to pull it over and cover that section, I could. Now I'm going to hit Enter because that unactivates the transformation. You'll see that there is a line here. You could always go to your spot healing brush, get in there and kind of, I don't know why it's doing that. Here, we can merge these two layers. Maybe that'll help us, yeah. You could go in and kind of clean up some of this. And it's not a bad choice. I mean, it's probably going to look pretty good. Like I said, this backdrop is really forgiving. It's a great backdrop for if you have to, you know, extend a backdrop. This is the one to go with. If you're working with like seamless paper, or something with a pattern or texture, it's going to be a lot harder to try to extend that backdrop. And then even over here where you see some of those wrinkles, I would take those out. So those would just annoy me. So that's not a terrible choice. That looks okay. Wouldn't be my first choice, but like I said, that's a great option for extending a backdrop if you have to do it. I'm going to show you another way. So let's delete this layer. I'm going to Command J to duplicate my layer again. And I'm going to show you my absolute favorite way to extend a backdrop. This is something that I've just kind of developed over years of using Photoshop. It's something I really like, so I do it a lot, as you will see. What I do is I duplicate my layer, which I've already done. I'm going to take my top layer and I'm going to create a layer mask by clicking on this square with the circle in the middle. Now it's a layer mask. That means if I paint with a black paintbrush, it's going to reveal the image that is below it. If I do it right now, which I completely could, make sure that your opacity is at 100% on your brush and that your flow is at 100%, otherwise it's not going to show all the way through. I could paint over it right now, just like this, and obviously it looks like it didn't do anything because the picture below it is an identical copy of the one on top, so all I did was reveal the exact same image below it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my bottom image. I'm going to go to the Move tool, and I'm just going to move these pixels over. Okay, so this is my preferred method for extending a backdrop, especially one like this. Sorry, I need to learn to just let it go. Partially because what I really like about this is it saves your pixels. You're just borrowing pixels from next door, so you're not really destroying the pixels that you have there. It's a really good way to extend a backdrop without having to destroy any of the information that you already have. And then if you feel like you need to blend it a little bit, because maybe it is a little bit of a repetitive pattern here, I would flatten the image. I would go to my healing spot tool. I would choose a spot and I would just kind of add some texture so that it mixes up a little bit of what the pattern is in the background, and then you wouldn't see. Like I said, this backdrop is super forgiving. If you're interested, this backdrop is from Baby Dream Backdrops. It's a fabric backdrop. It's made out of a thick fleece, so it never wrinkles. It's a fantastic product, and it is called Shabby Tabby, I believe. Shabby Tabby Green. It's great for boys. It's one of my favorite backdrops for boys. That would be my preferred way to extend a backdrop in this situation. Now I'm going to go back here for a minute. By the way, if you ever need to go back on Photoshop, you want to hit Command Z, and then if you want to continue going back, you want to hit Command Option Z, and it's going to step all the way back. It's pretty much a lifesaver if you're new to Photoshop. So I do want to show you one way that I really dislike for extending backdrops in Photoshop. I've seen a lot of this on Facebook lately, and it's really something that bothers me because it's a terrible way to extend your backdrop, and that's why I'm going to show it to you. So if you go up here to Filter, and if you go to Liquify, Liquify is an awesome tool. If you have a new mom who's super self-conscious, who maybe has a little bit of extra flab under her chin she wants taken care of, Liquify is awesome. If you have someone that you know you're doing a glamour shot and you want them to look a certain way, Liquify is your best friend. If you are extending a backdrop, Liquify is not your best friend. And the reason for that is that we're only given so many pixels per inch in an image. The more we destroy those pixels, the lower quality our image becomes. Liquify essentially destroys pixels. What it does is it takes a pixel and it stretches it. So if you are doing something small, like say this was a woman and I wanted to, like, you know, go like this, and I wanted to tuck in some cheek or make her a slight bit thinner somehow, you know, that's fine. But when you're talking about extending a backdrop, I've seen a lot of people do tutorials lately on using Liquify to extend a backdrop. And this is essentially what they do. They go in and they move the pixels and they stretch them out just like this. And they use them to extend the backdrop. Now, the reason that this is a really bad idea, obviously it looks ridiculous in this picture anyways, because this texture is just ruined. But a lot of people do it with like a seamless paper that's a solid color. You are asking one little pixel to stretch and cover this whole area. So when you try to print this image, it's going to look awful. You're going to really, really lose a lot of the quality in your backdrop, and you don't want to do that. So Liquify is great for a lot of things. It's not great for extending backdrops. I wouldn't suggest it in this situation. All right, if you have like a tiny itty bitty little spot, I mean, I would rather clone it, but you could liquefy it. But in the end, you know, it's just not the best choice. All right, so now we're gonna go to our next picture here. How adorable is she? By the way, these are all straight out of camera, so please don't judge me on skin tones and stuff like that, because these have not been touched. So now we're dealing with a backdrop that has a lot of patterns in it. I love this backdrop, also from Baby Dream Backdrops if you're interested. I really, really like the way this looks. I like the way it photographs, but it is on the smaller side, so you do end up with these gaps on the end that need to be fixed. And so once again, I'm going to use my favorite method, which is to Command J. I'm going to duplicate my background layer. I'm going to choose this square with a circle in it down here that's going to create a layer mask. Now you want to make sure that, see this little lock on your background layer? You want to make sure that you unlock that. Otherwise you won't be able to move your background. And then make sure that you click back on this top layer, because that's where you want to be. I'm going to choose my paintbrush. I'm going to choose a black brush. And I want to make sure it's 100% opacity and 100% flow. And I'm going to paint on the sections that I need covered. And at the moment, it's not going to look like anything because the picture below it is an identical copy of the picture that we're on already. But once I'm done painting, I'm going to choose my lower layer. I'm going to choose the move tool, and I'm going to move my background until it's in a spot that I like. All right, so if I stop right here, obviously this up here looks a little funky because it's a repeat pattern of here. This looks pretty much okay. It doesn't bother me so much that it's a repeat pattern because it kind of all is a repeat pattern. So I am going to show you how to take care of that. So at this point, I like the way this looks. I am going to flatten the image, which I know they tell you never to do, but I'm going to Command J to duplicate my copy again, so I keep a copy of that bottom one. You could also use this stamp tool in this situation, where I kind of like this star, so I might actually steal that star and bring it over here, and that's going to help to switch up this backdrop and make it look a little bit different on this side. I might steal some of these stars. And by doing it this way, I'm not destroying the integrity of my image because I'm just borrowing pixels from another section that's already has pixels in it. I'm not stretching pixels to try to make up for more area. So to me, this looks pretty good. So now we have this whole side to worry about. So the way I would take care of this is, once again, I'm going to right click and flatten my image. I'm going to Command J to duplicate my image. I'm going to go to my bottom layer and unlock it. And I'm going to hit Command T, which is going to enable me to transform this. I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose Flip Horizontal. Now it doesn't look like anything happened because my top layer is this image, so it's not showing you what's going on the bottom layer, but the bottom layer is now flipped. To get out of this transform box, I'm going to hit enter, and that's going to do away with that. I'm going to click on my top layer again, make a layer mask, and now when I choose my black brush, I can paint here, and what it's doing is it's copying the opposite end of this picture. So it's copying what's on this side. Here, this is what's underneath, this is what's above. It's revealing what is below, which is this lovely star backdrop. Okay, so this one I don't like so much, but we can fix that in a minute. Somehow I missed that before. Let's see, let's get rid of this. So there. So now we have two sides that are more or less exactly the same because they're exact duplicates of each other. One thing I would do with this is I would take my clone stamp and see how this one star is kind of like half a star hanging out here. I think I'm going to steal this star because this looks better to me. I'm going to steal this. Oh, I'm going to be on the right layer here. Let me flatten this image. I'm going to steal this star and I'm going to put it right here. Ignore that. Try again. Okay, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to do the same thing maybe with this star right here. I'm going to clone that and I'm going to put them right here. So there you go. That looks a lot better. Maybe even steal this little pointy spot right here so that this star looks like it has a little bit more of a point to it. All right, so that part of it looks pretty good. You are going to see some repeating patterns. You're going to see some things that aren't perfect. You can go in and play around with those if you're unhappy with them. I don't really mind the repeating patterns, like I said, because that's the backdrop. It repeats a lot of patterns. What I would do with the floor here is you can see my light stand is showing up on this side. I would Command J and duplicate my background layer, and I would do exactly what we did before, where I would unlock the background layer, I would right click, I would hit Command T, then right click, I would flip it horizontally, enter, make the top a layer here, choose my black brush, and then you can go in and actually just duplicate what it looks like on the other side. So we're just gonna, we don't want that one. There's that Command Z that saves us every time. And we do want some shadow under here, right? Because it's like the shadow under the moon is gonna make it look natural. So we do want that. So that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this picture. So obviously this is unedited completely. I haven't adjusted anything as far as exposure or contrast or anything like that. But at the moment, just for extending the backdrop, I'm pretty happy with this. So I would call that a day on that one. Let's look at this one. So this is the exact same situation. This is exactly how I would do this. I would Command J. I would make it a layer, choose my black brush. I would trace this with my black brush to reveal the layer under it. Go to my bottom layer, choose the move tool, and I would just move that brick over. And yeah, you're gonna get a little bit, like, see this white line here? That's just because my brush didn't go all the way to the edge. So we can fix that pretty easy. You are gonna get a little bit, like right here, of these repeating patterns. They're so easy to fix. Once you are happy with that, if you just choose your healing tool here, choose sample from like an area that you wanna copy and just like switch up some of that background so it's not looking like a clone stamp, you know? So that's a little bit different texture. Especially right here, this one's pretty obvious. But once you kind of play around with it, that looks totally fine. And let's see. I wonder. So if we go back to this one real quick, I don't know how many of you do canvases. I wasn't planning on showing you this, but I think I will. I'm just gonna real quick do what I did before with this layer and fix this background here. And I want to show you, if a lot of you do wrapped canvases, they can be a huge pain. They can be awesome. They are beautiful. If you shoot right, then you don't have to fix it later. But sometimes people order wrapped canvases and you're just like, oh, now I don't know what to do, because this looks great as an image, but once I try to wrap it around an image, I'm going to lose like half of his hand here. I'm going to lose a lot of space. So one thing that's really awesome with the new Photoshop update is the content aware cropping tool. If you go up here to your crop tool, and if you extend the backdrop, and like I said, I'm not sure 100% how this is going to look because there's a lot of stuff going on in this. And you extend it, make sure that this content aware right here is clicked on. Extend it to where you want it to be, and then hit enter and just give it a minute to think. And so it's going to kind of make up what it thinks should be in that area that was blank. It's not always right. Sometimes it looks absolutely crazy, but it's a start. And especially if you're doing a lot of newborn sessions where, see, it's not that bad. Where you have a solid background, like a blanket or something like that, this is a really easy way to extend your image for a canvas. Because you know, when they print the canvas, most of this is going to be wrapped around. You're only going to see, you know, oops, you're only going to see like this much, and the rest is going to be wrapped around the outside of the canvas. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but at least that way, when you're ordering from your company, like it goes all the way around. You don't have to do a solid color. That's just an extra little tip that I thought that I would throw in. So anyways, those are some of the many, many ways to extend a backdrop. Let's see what this one looks like. If we tried to extend this, say mom and dad said, hey, I want a canvas of this. Let's do it wrapped. Let's see what Photoshop could come up with. It might look absolutely ridiculous, but we're going to check it out and see. The anticipation is killing me. Now this has a lot of pattern to it, so Photoshop's going to have a much harder time trying to, duplicate that pattern. But you can see you would definitely have to do some cloning down here and some, mixing around and trying to fix this stuff up. But it would save you some time if you're going to do a wrapped canvas, because it is going to cover some of the outsides of that image. But that looks ridiculous, so we won't do that. So anyways, that is all for today. I hope you guys tune in for more tricks and tips in Photoshop. I have lots of new new tutorials coming out, and I am completely open to questions or requests. If there's anything specific that you really want to learn, please shoot me a message. And I look forward to talking to you guys all soon. I hope you have a fantastic evening, and I will catch you next time.